Okay, so my camera just said that the video recording has been stopped, so I don't know how much I showed and how much I didn't. Hopefully you didn't lose too much of it, but I'm still working on her details on her face. Alright, now I'm going to do a second layer of her lips, just like I did before. I'm going to start with the corner. Gently tap it and then kind of pull it down towards the main lip. I'm balancing my pinky on her face so that I have control over my lines. So I'm not just freehanding wiggling it all around, because I'm just not that steady. I'm purposely going a little bit behind where her lip crease is, just to make it a tiny bit blurry, so there isn't solid lines where her lip meets the rest of her face. It just makes it look a little more realistic rather than solid lines. Okay, on the inside of the top lip, I'm going to start a line there, and then I'm going to pull up a couple of these creases to help fill in the top lip. I'm purposely going to leave a hole where the milk blister usually forms on these tiny ones, right here. It's going to look naturally paler right there. Now on her bottom lip, again using my pinky to balance so I can steer my lines. Gently tap it, pull it in, and gently tap it and kind of almost push it back a little bit so it's, again, a little bit blurry just behind the lip line. Alright, she's almost there. I'm going to put some darker right inside of her lip on the bottom and then pull some creases up. I don't want these to fade in because I want them to be defined as the creases, so I'm just going to gently tap them down so that part of them retain and the rest of them fade in. She's so stinking cute. Okay, now one thing that I like to do that I'm not sure if others do, so blame it on me if you don't like it. I'm going to give her head, you know how I did on the shoulders and the thighs, I'm going to give her head kind of a crown of color to fade into the scalp of her head, and that's, to me, it looks more natural and more realistic. You don't want it super thick, so don't overdo this or it looks really horrible. I'm going to start just doing the outline of her crown up at the front, and I'm going to blend that, pulling it back because I want her forehead to be a little more pale. It doesn't add a ton of color, but it's enough to really help crown and finish her overall look. Okay, so that was enough to cover kind of the front half of the head. Now I'm going to use the same technique to do the back. And I'm going to do 1/4 at a time, or like 1/2 of the back at a time, just so I don't have it dripping all over. Alright, so now I'm going to turn it to this side. there's going to be excess on your sponge at this point, I'm going to use a little bit more on the top of her eyelids and her eyebrow area. I don't really like to put paint directly there just because sometimes it ends up being too much. Okay, so now I'm going to come in. I don't want to touch her where I just put it, so I have to be careful. But I'll start with this ear because this one's a little more dry. And we're going to do the depth inside of her ears. Try not to rest this baby down on anything while her head is still wet, or it'll take everything you just put on and rub it off only halfway, and then it'll look terrible to try to put it back on. So do be careful. Alright, so that gives us depth inside of our ears. So now I'm going to take some of this drier stuff. I just dipped it in the paint a little bit. And then I'm going to come to her ear and paint just like the outside of the lobe. And blend that in with my sponge. That gives us a pretty realistic little ear ball. Right. Side number 2. Again, that creates just enough shading to make your ears creases on the inside look real. I'm going to come back in with the wetter stuff and just paint the outside lobe. And blend that in. And one ear, her face, and her second ear. Now I have a couple more veins or creases underneath of her neck that I'm going to touch up before I'm going to turn off the video, and then I'll finish her other arm and her other leg to catch up. And after this layer is done, I'm going to cook her, and then we'll come back in with some final details in her nail beds. Alright, so these final creases, just like on her hands and her feet, you want to only do a little bit at a time to make sure that you have a chance to get them blended before they sink in too solidly and stick out too much. She is so cute. This is my favorite part of the baby, when they really start coming to life. So cute, Suu Kyi. So you can see the lightness and the darkness on her creates that depth. I think she's actually even more pale in real life than she's showing up on the camera. At least my eye looks different than... Let's see. There you go. Maybe that's a little better. Her little hand up next to her face. Very cute. Such a pretty girl. Alright, so I'm going to cook her now. Or actually, I'm going to finish her other hand and her other foot. And then I'm going to cook her, and then I'll catch up with you in a few minutes.